Hello and good morning friends, welcome to the CEC Reset live lecture. Dear friends, we would like to tell you all that from today onwards we are going to start a very new series, and this series is on marketing. This is a series based lecture and we would be conducting ample of lectures on this very topic, or I would say this is the broad topic on which we would be conducting ample of lectures. So this is the first lecture in this series, and I would say this is an introduction to the marketing, and for this we have with us in our studios Dr. Garima Gupta. Dr. Gupta is Assistant Professor in Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi. So dear friends, let's take advantages from her experiences and from the basics, let's try to understand what marketing is, what are its elements, what are its tools. So we would be discussing as we proceed further in our future sessions, but what basically marketing is. So let's first of all welcome our guest, Dr. Garima Gupta. Dr. Gupta, welcome to the Reset lecture. As I already said, this is introduction to marketing. So what we have for the students today?
Okay, I would start with a very introductory fundamental session on marketing, to give you a brief overview as to what is marketing all about, what it incorporates, moving further, the importance of marketing, the functions it performs, the role, the significance in emerging economies like India. We would move towards marketing mix, would be covering product, and then we will see to what extent we have understood the session and whether we should take it forward or give a break here. To start with the session, let's first of all understand the flows. To start with marketing, we have to understand that there are two parties that are involved. One, industry, and the other, the market, which comprises of the buyers. So when we say this is basically an exchange which is going on between the industry, which is a collection of sellers, and the market, which is a collection of buyers. These buyers, we assume, have a capacity to pay and they demand, so that there is a willingness from their side to purchase the various goods and services which are on offer by the industry. As you can see, not only the goods and services flow is taking place, there is also a money flow which is taking place from the market side, that is from the buyer side, to the industry, that is to the seller side. Another flow that you can see here is the communication flow or the information flow. So when we talk about the communication flow or the information flow, we know that from the buyers there is a constant feedback, there is a review as to how good or how bad they like the product, what kind of modifications they would like to have in it, and from the seller side there is a constant update as to what kind of new products and services are entering the market. Because of this constant interaction that takes place between the sellers and the buyers, we say that the marketing activities come forward. We say marketing broadly, how can we understand that? So, we say a very simple definition which is given by Edsel Walker Stanton defines marketing as a total system of business that is designed to plan, price, place and promote the one satisfying goods and services to the target market. Now, there are some keywords which one has to focus on. One is that it is a total system of business which is designed to have a proper coordination between 4 P's, the P's that make the marketing mix. That is, we have to focus on product, we have to focus on price, we have to focus on its distribution, that is place, and we also have to focus on its promotional part. The whole purpose of designing all these activities, the whole purpose of designing the complete marketing mix is one, that is, you want to achieve the organizational objectives, and in the case of marketing, the organizational objective is meeting the goals, meeting the needs, meeting the requirements of your target audience in the best possible manner. Having understood the definition of marketing, let us move on to what all can be marketed. To say there is like whole list of aspects and whole list of entities that one can take into account, starting with goods. So, we all know that there are physical goods that are marketing, and when we talk about physical goods, we are talking about all the physical goods that are there in the tangible form, be it bread, butter, soap, shampoo and so on and so forth. Along with goods, we can also market services, that is something which is primarily intangible in nature, and we all come across number of services that we avail in a span of time, say airlines, hotel services, restaurant, travel, tourism, healthcare, and so forth. Apart from that, we can also market events like your IPL, World Cup, Olympics. You can have experiences. So we say when you go to an amusement park, the whole thrill, the whole experience that you get to enjoy over there is also marketed by those companies. Then we have persons. You also market people. Most of the time we find that in marketing or in advertising, when you come across various type of advertisements, you come across celebrity endorsers. So these are the people who are marketed. When Madonna comes up with an album, a new album of her own, you are basically marketing Madonna as a person and the album as a tangible product over there. You have places. So the whole travel and tourism industry, we try to promote travel and tourism, and we say come to India, visit Taj Mahal, go to Agra. So all those places, these are the places that are marketed by travel and tourism industry. Properties comprises of basically two heads. One, you talk about the real estate properties, that is the real property, and the second is the financial property. So you deal with the stock and the bonds. So you market the stocks and bonds, you market the real estate, and there is whole real estate industry where both the residential as well as the commercial premises, they are marketed. You also market organizations, we say like Philips, IBM, Samsung. So say these are the companies that come forward with their goods, they come forward with their whole range of products that they launch for the consumers, and this is how they market themselves. You have marketing on information with respect to, like say for example, you want to invest and you are working with an insurance company, there is a consultancy, there is an information that you are providing to various parties as to which particular insurance plan you should go for. So there is an information that you market. And then the marketing of ideas. So obviously when you have some new idea in mind that you want to take forward, you can also market that idea, and in some of the cases the businesses, they generally go for marketing of broad ideas. Having understood this, let us understand how actually marketing emerged, how the whole concept of marketing evolved. So say there is a change in composition and size of markets. Though marketing was there from the very beginning, but it is only because of the increase in the size of the markets and the composition of the size of the markets that you see marketing entering into the whole system and making a big impact nowadays. There is an increase in disposable income. So people have more money to part, and because they have more money to part, because they have more disposable income in their hands, they look for the goods and services where the income can be put to best possible use. You have seamless global society. So the transactions which are taking place between the sellers and the buyers, they do not have any boundaries anymore. Okay? So you are transacting, the buyer may be sitting at some other place and the seller may be sitting at some other place. So it's only at the click of the mouse in some of the cases that marketing and the complete transactions, they take place. Then you have, it is actually a basis for competitive advantage. We know that in most of the cases, what we deal with as goods and services are by and large similar in nature. So when you have Me Too kind of products, everybody, like there are a number of companies selling soaps and shampoos and other categories of FMCG, you know that this is what is going to make a distinction. So how well you market your product is how well it is going to be accepted by the people, especially when you are taking into account their need and requirement set. Then you have, there is abundant choice that the consumer has today. Gone are the days when the sectors or the industries used to have a monopoly over the market. Now we have a situation where the consumer is not only aware, the consumer can also exercise a lot of decision making when it comes to what kind of good or what kind of services he or she would like to have. So in the case of abundant choices in the market, it becomes all the more necessary, imperative that you come forward with your own marketing strategies to make a mark. How your business and your marketing landscape has changed over a period of time, this is something which we are going to study next. See, there is a system where you know that there is a lot of change in IT. IT has taken over a lot of sectors. So we say because of changing technology, there are many things which are possible now. There are many things which can be taken care of over a computer mediated environment. There is deregulation, privatization, globalization, because of which actually competition has gone up. And when the competition goes up, it also heightens the expectations of the customers. And because it heightens the expectations of the consumers, consumers are looking for the very best. So you have to convince them that whatever good on service you are offering to the market, you are offering it better in comparison to what the competing firms have to offer to them. You have a situation where the customer is really empowered. So the customer has a lot of power in terms of dictating as to what he wants, when he wants, the kind of good, the kind of services, the quality of goods and services, the prices at which he would like to have them, the composition, all the more a very customized kind of an offerings. The consumer today is in a position to demand all this. Then you have heightened competition, which has primarily come in from the deregulation and privatization policies, but also within the sector you would find a lot of competition going on between the private players and the public sector companies, the foreign brands and the domestic brands, and so on and so forth, and therefore marketing has to take a very different edge. Retail transformations, so say retail has come up in a big way, and as per some of the reports it is expected to take over at least 15% growth. Because of this retail transformation, we know that people are expecting all sorts of goods and services that are now available for their use and disposal, which probably were not there earlier. Disintermediation, we have actually done away with the intermediaries in between. So there is a direct contact that we are able to establish now, given the change in the overall setup of the economy. So because of this disintermediation, we are actually interacting head on with the consumer. What is the relevance of marketing to India? India, which is, we all know, is an emerging economy, the economy which is doing very well, the economy which has an environment which necessitates and favors marketing. Why? Because there is competition also, there are free forces of demand and supply. Because it displays the free forces of market economy, that is, you determine the quantity, you determine the prices on the basis of the market forces. Also, it becomes important that you take into account what your customers require. And why this is required is because we see a primarily the consumers shift from the seller's market to buyer's market, and the market itself undergoing a shift from facing shortage to surplus. So we know that the goods are not in deficit kind of a situation. You have got surplus goods and services that the seller are now in a position to offer, and the buyers are in a position to buy. Let us understand some of the functions of marketing. So we say they can be broadly categorized under three heads. One is the merchandising function, everything that has to do with the merchandise, that is the product. Now this particular function starts from the very first step where you plan about the product. So everything related to your product planning, product development, selling, packing, grading, assembly, all these functions are being exercised, all these activities are exercised under its merchandising functions. Coming to physical distribution functions, as it is clear, physical distribution means there is going to be some distribution, there is going to be some sort of transportation which is going to be involved. Now goods are produced at some other place, and it is quite possible that the buyers are situated at some other place. So there is a whole activity, there is a whole need of transporting the goods from the place of their production to the place of their consumption. So physical distribution function actually takes care of transportation and storage. Then you have auxiliary functions, which are basically the support functions. So all that support which is required to get the transaction materialized is something which would be covered under here. So under support functions, there are activities like risk bearing, there are activities like arranging for funds, that is the financial requirement or the financial capital flows. There are the auxiliary functions as to taking care of say the branding aspects and so on and so forth. So they are primarily the support functions. Let us understand some of the distinct concepts of marketing. Now marketing has evolved over a period of time, and we understand that marketing firms have different kind of orientations. Starting from the production concept, firms under the production concept, they believe or they assume that the whole strength or the whole advantage of entering into the marketplace is the fact that you are able to produce on a mass scale. So, the mass production which brings down your cost is actually the assumption that you make under the production concept. Also, there is standardization. There is standardization because you are producing the goods and services on a mass scale. So, you are not into customization, rather you are offering one standard product to the entire market. And the focus is only on producing on a large scale, thereby getting the advantage of the economies of scale. The product concept, which is the second concept, assumes that the focus has to be on the product. Here the buyer is actually looking for the quality of the product that you have to offer. But in some of the cases, we fail to understand that there is also a limit to which focus has to be laid on product. So, an overemphasis on the product, thereby ignoring the other factors which may also have an equal bearance on whether the goods and services would be sold and they would be accepted by the market, can lead to a difficult kind of situation for a firm. The sales concept here is based on the assumption that whatever has been produced has to be sold. So, taking care of aggressive selling practices, or we can say adopting aggressive selling practices to sell whatever has been produced by the firms is what sales concept follows. Marketing concept, as you can see that this is the concept which has come fourth in line. It means the companies which follow the marketing concept obviously would be having some features of production, product and sale concept also, but the hallmark of marketing concept is that it focuses on the customer needs and requirements. So, the initial first step in marketing concept is to understand what the customer wants and accordingly come up with a product which is more compatible, which is in line, which is designed so as to suit the needs and requirements of your target market or of your target customers in the best possible manner when you compare it with the competing offerings. Societal marketing concept, which actually takes the marketing concept one step ahead, which says all that you produce should be in the long term interest of society at large. So, we say that there are certain products which are getting produced like tobacco, like alcohol, but is it in the long term interest of the society to consume and use such kind of products? We say, which takes us to a more say fundamental question, which is to what extent the society is ultimately going to benefit or is going to be harmed by whatever goods and services are being offered to the marketplace. Coming to the marketing concept in detail, so we say marketing actually begins from an understanding of what are the needs and requirements of the customer are and what are your own strengths through which you can convert those needs and requirements into a product or into a service offering. We say the marketing concept actually begins with a focus on consumers. So, it has lot of consumer orientation. We can say that it is basically customer centric. You have an integrated management action. We say the integrated management action comes forward in the sense that all that you are doing, all the marketing activities, they have to be very much synchronized with each other. So, say when you are talking about the product has to be synchronized with the way it is going to be priced. The prices are going to be synchronized with place, the place is to be synchronized with promotion and so on and so forth. So, there has to be integration in the sense that the whole should be more than the sum of the individual parts, what we also call as a synergy effect. We work towards consumer satisfaction, which is the third basic element of marketing concept. So, you say the focus is not on selling, the focus is on consumer satisfaction. Many a times we feel that perhaps marketing activity involves selling, which is not correct. So, we say when we talk about marketing, marketing actually makes selling superfluous. Why? Because you first of all make an effort to understand the consumer needs and then take the product to them. So, there is no need wherein you have to sell that particular product, the consumers would automatically demand for it because it is in line with their need and requirements. And last, we understand that we are into a dynamic business environment. We know that we are competing with many firms and industries at the same time, and therefore, the focus is to realize the organizational goals, but obviously with a profit. So, we have to undertake all the marketing activities, but we have to carry on with all these activities in a profitable manner. Going ahead, let's talk about the difference between the old and the new concepts of marketing. We say over a period of time, we have seen a sea change, where the old concept used to focus on selling the goods and services, as I have already discussed that there is a difference between selling and marketing, and it would be wrong to assume that when you are talking about marketing activities, you are talking about how to sell your product. On the contrary, you are focusing on your customer. So, as you can see in the case of old concept, the focus, or you can say the whole mechanism starts from the goods and services, sales takes place and you are selling those goods and thereby minting profits. Under the new concept, you start with discovering your consumers' needs, making the products which are more compatible with their need and requirement set, thereby creating a demand which gets created automatically. Because of the creation of demand, there would be sales. Along with sales, there would be certain after sales services that you would also be providing along with your good, and thereby you would be earning as a marketeer, as a firm, as a company, you would be making profits through customer satisfaction. Moving forward, let's understand as to how the holistic marketing has come into being. You would say the holistic marketing actually is based on the premise that marketing is everywhere, and it recognizes the fact that everything matters with marketing. To understand it more closely, holistic marketing is nothing but the development, design and implementation of marketing programs, processes and activities that recognize the breadth and length of all the interdependent activities that take place. When we say this is what is holistic marketing all about, when we talk about marketing in a holistic manner, we focus on 4 primary things. One, we focus on relationship building. So, we say now it is not only important for the firms, it is not only important for the marketeers to market their goods and services. At the same time, it is very essential that you develop a long-term relationship with your customers. Not only the customers, but all those people who have a stake, like they could be partners, they could be channel members, they could be employees. Second major element of having a holistic approach towards marketing is integrated marketing efforts. Now, that integration should show and that integration should reflect in whatever communication is taking place between the marketeer and the company on one hand and the customer and the outside parties on the other hand. You also need to have an integrated marketing effort in terms of introducing the products and services and market them in the marketplace. The third element is internal marketing, where you focus more on your internal employees. You say it's only when you make them feel satisfied, you can expect them to transfer this kind of satisfaction to the consumer who would come to your organization for some good or service. So, say your internal marketing efforts should reflect in the manner you deal with your internal task force, that is your marketing department, people at the managerial level and your coordination with the other departments of the same organization. The last element is performance marketing, which talks about that when you carry on all these activities, the last and the logical conclusion of all this is to assess the performance of all these activities in a holistic manner. So, we say when you talk about the performance, you talk about both financial as well as non-financial parameters. When you talk about financial parameters, the performance could be assessed by things like how much sales revenue you are getting, how much your profit you are able to make as a company, what is your share, what is your market share, what is your profitability, what is your income level vis-a-vis the other competing firms in the industry. The environment, you also have to see to what extent you have performed well in terms of taking care of environment and coming up with goods and services which are not detrimental to the environment. Also taking care of ethics and legal aspects. So, as a marketeer, you should be following all the legal mechanism, you should be aware of all the laws and the acts and all the legislations, and you should be ethical in your approach. At the same time, there should be something that you should be doing by way of your exercising corporate social responsibility towards community at large. Having done this, let's move ahead towards marketing environment. So, let's understand what marketing environment is. So, marketing environment is nothing but it consists of all the forces and the factors that are outside marketing which affect the relationship of the company with its target consumers. So, I say basically marketing environment is something that you can understand by way of an interface, a close interface which is taking place between the organization and its supra system. Now, the very need of tracking your external environment, your marketing environment, both inside and outside the organization is very important because it helps you to track the trends, see the changes and exploit the opportunities when they come. It is very necessary at times to adapt your marketing strategies and activities to meet the challenges and the opportunities that are thrown open by your supra system, that is your external environment. The factors that affect your marketing environment can broadly be categorized under two heads, your controllable factors and uncontrollable factors. Controllable factors are the factors over which a firm has some degree of control. Say for example, your plant and machinery, the material resources that you have at your disposal, your financial resources, your human resources or personnel, the technical and managerial know-how that you have and the image and goodwill of the company. So, obviously, if you feel that the demand for your good and services is going up and you have a plant and machinery which is not sufficient to meet that demand, you can always install another plant and machinery. You can build on your know-how and capabilities. You can improve the goodwill of your company. You can maintain a good image of the company in the eyes of the outside world. So, these are the factors that are to a very large extent in the control of the firm. Whereas, on the other hand, the uncontrollable factors are the ones over which either the firm has no control or it can exercise a very little degree of control, like the demographic factors or the demographic conditions, the compositions of the market, the economic conditions, its social and cultural environment, technological environment, political and legal environment, the competitive forces that operate which makes business and firms very dynamic in nature and their approach, the customer demand that keeps on fluctuating and over which it is not possible to have any kind of control. So, these are the factors that need to be taken care of at the end of the market year. Now, the company, because it cannot have a control over the uncontrollable forces, the only option that a marketeer or the company has is to adapt itself to the changes which are taking place. One step towards this end is to analyze your environment both for your threats and the opportunities and to assess whatever strengths and weaknesses you have as a company, which over a period of time can help you in attaining a competitive advantage or to provide you with a competitive edge. The process includes, first of all, understanding what all you want to achieve. In a broader sense, this means setting your goals, setting your objectives, measuring or tracking the performance in terms of what is happening. Once the performance comes to an end, you have to see, you have to evaluate and review as to what has happened, and then making a comparison between what was targeted and what you have achieved, so that if there is any negative variation, if there is any gap between what you expected and what you had as a target in mind is very different from what you have achieved, there is some sort of corrective action which is required, which could be in terms of changing the plans themselves, making them more reasonable, or to improve your overall performance so that you can realize your organizational goals in a much better manner. Let's now see, once you have done this, how can you understand the overall environment encompassing a company or a firm. So, we say there is a micro environment which is more close to a firm or to an industry, and there is a macro environment which actually affects all the firms and industries in an economy. We say micro environment, it consists of the factors close to the company that affects its ability to serve its customers. And some of the examples of the company's micro environmental forces are the company itself, like the strengths and weaknesses of the company, which are more individualistic to the company itself. You have the suppliers, so the kind of relationship and the kind of equation that you have with your suppliers, which is more individualistic to a company than to an economy as a whole. You have the marketing intermediaries, like what kind of a physical distribution network you have. You have to focus on the competitors, so your competitors can be very different, and it may so happen that the competition is very intense for one firm, probably for the firm which has newly entered the market space. You also deal with the public at large, and you also deal with the customers who would like to have your goods and services. Again, when we understand customers, there can be different categories of consumers. There could be consumer markets, there could be industrial markets, there could be reseller markets, there could be government markets, there could be international markets. All these are or may be your customers at a given point of time. Understanding the macro environment of a company, we can say that this consists of the larger societal forces that affect the company. And when we talk about larger societal forces, we talk about all those changes that take place outside the company over which the company has very little or no control. To start with this, we can first of all take into account the most important factor that plays a role and affect the working of the company, which is the demographics. Now, when we talk about demographics, we talk about the size and the composition of our markets. When we talk about size, we should know how big or how small the market is, how it is situated, where it is located, the age groups, the composition of genders, the race, the occupations, the income levels, everything that has to do with understanding your customer in and out. It provides you a quantitative aspect of consumer demand, like in this is the age bracket, this is the income, and given a certain occupation, this is the likely demand that a consumer would be having from this organization. All this, an assessment of a demographic profile of a consumer, enables the marketeers to understand the basis of market segmentation and also the reaction to its goods and services, how well the campaigns related to its products should be advertised so as to have the maximum impact and maximum positive response of its target consumers. Let us understand the economic environment, which is the second large macro environmental force. By economic environment, we have to understand what is the kind of income distribution in the economy, how well people are earning, what kind of propensity to save and propensity to consume they have, what is their disposable income, because all of this is going to affect the kind of demand they are going to have for your good and service. Also, we need to understand to what extent the economy as a whole is going through a boom or a depressionary phase. So, when the economy as a whole is doing very well, you can expect people also to be earning well and they would be demanding more goods and services. Obviously, on the other hand, on the flip side, when the economy is not doing so well and the economy is actually going through a depression phase, you cannot expect the consumers to be coming forward with their demand for goods and services. So, in that case, you probably have to wait and have to wait for some time when the economy will reach its stability position. We also have to understand the spending patterns of the consumers, how heavily they spend on certain category of goods and services, and what is the classification of their spend. You have to also understand the kind of influence the interest rate or the money supply or the consumer credit is going to have on the demand patterns. Like for example, if there are good credit facilities that are available, it is more likely that the consumers are going to buy the goods and services because they would be having money at hand. Similarly, if there is good money flow in the system or the interest rates are favorable to the consumers, there is more likelihood that the consumers are going to demand certain goods and services. Let us understand the socio-cultural environment, which is again one of the factors in the company's macro environment system. Socio-cultural environment actually defines our relationship to ourselves, to others, to organization, to society, to nature. These are actually the beliefs, these are actually the value systems which are imbibed into individuals from the very childhood stage. We can understand the core beliefs as the beliefs which are passed from one generation to other, and the secondary beliefs and the values which are again a part of our culture, the part of our social system, as something which is more open to change. To give you an example here, the core belief is how you believe in the institution of marriage, whereas secondary belief could be very different and could change from one period to the other period in the time. Whether you believe that one should marry in early ages is something which is prone to change. Politico-legal environment, which includes two components, your political environment and your legal environment. So, there are certain laws, government policies, pressure groups that influence various organizations and individuals, and you need to have an understanding of these laws and the government policies when you enter the marketplace, because a change in the government policy can have an impact on the working of your company. Similarly, the political influences. So, if there is political instability, your policies and the programs which are internal to your organization may have to undergo a change because of a shift in the political regime. Coming to the natural environment, we know that we draw our resources from nature, and all these resources are not in surplus. We say the natural resources, they are needed by the marketeers as inputs, and therefore, because they are used by the marketeers as inputs, they affect the overall marketing activities if we keep on using them and we do not take any steps to use them in a proper manner. You could land up in a situation where there could be the shortage of raw material. Also, in some of the cases, the marketing activities may add to the pollution level and they may damage the quality of the natural environment, because of which sometimes they draw increased government intervention. Coming to the next force, which is the technological environment, we know that there are ever expanding markets which create the conditions which lead to technical progress. Say IT has come up in a big way, and not only this, we can see the technological advancement in the goods and services that we use on a daily basis. So, instead of using typewriters, we are using computers. So, the change or the technological advancement is apparent in the form of new goods and services that keep on entering the market space. New technologies offer a main source of economic growth. It is only when you are technologically advanced that you can offer to the market new goods and services for their use. It helps in creating new markets and opportunities. Coming to an understanding of what we know by segmentation. So, let us understand what is marketing segmentation, which is nothing but the process of taking the total heterogeneous market for a product and dividing it into several sub-markets or segments, each of which tends to be homogeneous in all significant. In other words, what we try to do is we take the total heterogeneous market and divide it into smaller parts which are much more significant and they are much more manageable at the end of a firm. Segments, they are not mutually exclusive customer groups, and there could be the mobility of buyers from one segment to the other segment, which actually creates instability. There always remains a possibility of designing an attribute which is better suited to the segment. So, you try to focus on the segment that you feel has the needs and requirements, and you can better tap their needs and requirements through the goods and services that you have to offer to them. Segments can be on the basis of different product forms, they can on the basis of different pricing abilities, they can be on the basis of the promoted image, and so on and so forth. Now, there are certain benefits that a marketer and a company gets from the whole exercise of segmenting its market. First, it can help in selecting the suitable segments that are compatible with the company's resources. So, given your financial and other resources, you can decide whether you would like to go for the whole market or you would like to focus your attention only on one or two segments. It also helps the marketeers in focusing their strategies more sharply on the target group, because then your focus is on understanding the needs and requirements of only your target segment. The changes that are required may be analyzed over a period of time, they may be analyzed, implemented without losing the market share from those segments, and somehow it also helps you in instilling customer loyalty, because firms offering are better match and are more compatible to the need set of the segment to which you are addressing. Segmenting the consumer markets, we say that there are 4 primary ways in which market segmentation can take place. One is on the basis of geography, that is also known as geographic segmentation, where you divide the market on the basis of regions or you divide market on the basis of geographies. Under demographic segmentation, you make use of various demographic elements to divide your market. You can divide it on the basis of gender, you can divide it on the basis of age, you can divide it on the basis of income. Say for example, in most of the cases you find that for garments and for clothes, you have different types of clothes for children, for men and for women. Similarly, for perfumes and for deodorants, you can segment the market on the basis of gender. So, you can have different types of variables under consumer demographics that could give you ample information to segment your market. You can also go for psychographic segmentation, which is a combination of consumers' demographics and their personality traits, which is also called as consumer psychographics. It is quite possible that consumers coming from a similar kind of a demographic group may portray a very different kind of a personality trait, or maybe having a different kind of a personality trait. There could be people coming from a defined age bracket or people from the same gender, but they may have a very different kind of a personality trait when it comes to being innovators, or they can be risk averse. Then you have behavioral segmentation, where you try to segment the market on the basis of consumer behavioral aspects, like for example their usage pattern. There may be some kind of consumers who spend very heavily or they are heavy users of a particular product. On the other hand, there could be people who are either the first time user of the product or have not used the product so far. Also, the behavioral segmentation could be related to what is the motive behind the purchase. Say for example, if I want to buy toothpaste, my motive of buying a toothpaste could be very different from what benefit the other person is seeking from toothpaste. So, there could be different benefits associated with toothpaste, like whitening, brightening, taking care of some tooth problem, taking care of tooth decay, fragrance, and so on and so forth. So, say there could be number of reasons because of which the product is sought, and this is something that you try to tap under the behavioral segmentation. Then we have the selection of segmentation as to how to go for selection of segments in terms of numbers. So, we say the company's focus should be on the size and the growth potential. The segment that you choose for your company should be large and good enough to give you profit on a continuous basis. You also have to assess the kind and the nature and the amount of investment which is required to cater to the need of that particular segment. And obviously, profitability is one of the core aspects, along with the kind of risk that you are taking while addressing to that particular segment. And one also has to take into account the competition. To what extent there is high or stringent competition in that particular segment, or is it a new segment on which you are addressing your focus for the very first time. The selection of segment is usually done on the basis of following factors. One, you take into account the segment durability. One has to take into account the fact that the segment that you choose for yourself, or the segment that you identify for your company efforts and goods and services, should be durable in nature. It should be significant in terms of its size. It should be measurable, that is, the size and the characteristics of the segment should be measurable enough in quantifiable terms. You should be able to reach out to that particular segment. Say for example, you understand that there is a market for automobiles, there is a market that can be segment on the basis of that you can segment on the basis of income. So, you have high end luxurious cars, you have cars for the middle income segment, you have the cars for the lower income segment. And suppose you want to enter into a different kind of a segment, say sports segment, you have to understand to what extent people in that particular area would be open to buying a car of that sort, or even if you divert your attention to that particular segment, will it work and is it durable enough to spend your time and resources on that particular segment. Nature of demand or the response rate, that is what kind of demand pattern you see coming from that particular segment on which you have made a decision to focus on, and then the mobility, to what extent you feel that the buyers would be moving from one segment to the other segment on a continuous basis. Let us understand after segmentation what is targeting. Now, obviously, it is not possible for all the firms, and in some of the cases for a single firm to focus its attention on all the segments, because the segments are obviously heterogeneous in nature, the market is heterogeneous in nature. So, depending on your financial resources, depending on your capabilities and know-how, depending on the potential of the segment that you want to tap, one has to decide on what should be your targeting strategies. One can go for an undifferentiated strategy, a concentrated strategy and a differentiated strategy. In case of undifferentiated strategy, you consider organization as a whole and you come out with a single marketing mix, that is a standardized kind of an offering, considering the market to be homogeneous, considering your target market to be the entire market. In the case of concentrated strategy, you can concentrate on any one or more than one segments at one point of time. So, instead of focusing on the entire market, you focus or you concentrate on one or more than one segment at a time with a single marketing mix. In case of differentiated marketing strategy, you identify the segments and you also identify the potential in each of these individual segments that call for a different kind of a marketing mix. So, for each segment that you identify, there is a different kind of a marketing mix strategy that works. Coming to the factors that affect the choice of your strategy, that is whether you would be going for a differentiated strategy or an undifferentiated strategy or a concentrated strategy, depends on host number of factors. Some of these are the managerial capabilities. It depends to a very large extent on you as a manager or on the company as a whole to see to what extent you can manage the various segments that you have identified, and whether you would want to target all of these segments in one go or you want to exploit them and take advantage of these segments and cater to the needs and requirements of these segments one by one. You also need to take into account the competitive marketing strategies, the nature of the market. So, if the nature of the market is homogeneous, it makes more sense that you go for an undifferentiated marketing strategy. You also have to understand the size and the growth structure of the segment, the product life cycle and the characteristics of the products. If you feel that the product that you have to offer to the market is more or less standardized in nature, obviously you would be considering the entire market as one and would be launching that particular product and service for the entire market. You also have to focus on the various environmental forces and factors that we have discussed in the preceding section, the factors that would be having a bearance on the overall working of the company, which includes not only the micro environmental factors, but also the larger macro environmental factors, which would have an influence on your targeting strategy and your choice of the targeting strategy. Let's come to an overview of whatever we have discussed so far. So, in nutshell, we can say that if there are 3 targeting strategies that one has to choose from, that is, the choice is to be made between choosing an undifferentiated marketing strategy or a differentiated marketing strategy or a concentrated marketing strategy. The decision parameters could be 1, the firm resources. So, if the firm resources are constrained, we can say it is more suitable and it is more logical to go for an undifferentiated marketing strategy. As against this, if you know that your firm's resources are ample enough, they are good enough, you can go for a concentrated marketing strategy as well. You also have to understand the kind of use the product will be put to. So, if you feel that the product that you have to offer to the market is a common use product, obviously the undifferentiated strategy would score an edge over the differentiated and the concentrated one. Similarly, you have to understand to what extent the products are different in terms of satisfying the needs. So, if there are different products satisfying different needs or single products satisfying different kind of needs, probably one can go for either differentiated or concentrated strategy in a much more feasible manner. When we compare the market coverage strategy across the products, segments and marketing mix, again we can say that when you have a product which is either a standardized product or very few variants, what kind of marketing coverage strategy we are following in that case is actually an undifferentiated one. On the other hand, when you have good number of products or probably many products catering to the need and requirements of different segments on an individual basis, that is, you have one segment and a different product for that particular segment, you are more moving towards a differentiated strategy. Marketing mix would also be different if you are focusing on differentiating strategy. So, if you are following different marketing mix approaches, you are actually following a differentiating target market strategy. So, depending your goal, depending on your resources, depending on the kind of competition, depending on the viability and the potential of segments, you can choose which particular segments you would like to target in future. So, I think with all this, I have been able to give you a brief understanding of what marketing is all about, how marketing is different from selling, what are the basic functions performed by a marketeer, how to segment your market, why segmentation is an important exercise, and how segment leaves you with identification of different groups, and a company needs to decide on what kind of strategy it should be following in future so as to effectively tap its target market. Thank you.
With this note, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for giving us a very productive session. My only question is, as very few minutes left with us, what are we going to cover in the future sessions?
As I have already discussed that every company designs its own marketing mix. So, in the subsequent lectures, we would understand as to what is a marketing mix, what all it comprises of, and we would also take into account and we would discuss in detail each of the marketing mix elements one by one, so as to give the viewers a holistic understanding and perspective of marketing.
So, we would be discussing and we would be covering all what Dr. Garima Gupta has said. Ma'am, a very brief answer I would like to know through you. If we talk about marketing, can we say that marketing is a planned, deliberate and sustained effort?
Yes, it is a planned and a deliberate sustained effort, because you know that the business is dynamic in nature. There are a number of companies that operate in a marketplace, and it is very important for you to come up with your own marketing strategies so as to have an edge over the competing firms. So as I have already mentioned in my lecture also, the marketing starts with the very identification of the customer need, and therefore this is an exercise which is to be carried out by the company on a continuous basis, because the needs and wants of the customers also keep on changing on a regular basis.
With this note, thank you ma'am, thank you once again. Dear friends, if you have any queries or if you want to give your feedback regarding this particular lecture, then you can mail us at info.cc@nic.in, and if you want to access this lecture, then you have the platform called YouTube, on which we daily upload our lectures, and this lecture would also be available for you on YouTube very soon. Thank you ma'am, thank you once again.